Hello, my name is Saba Dubaishi, and I'll be presenting my research on a balancing act. How do we pursue truth in an open society? To start, I'd like to answer the question, what is an open society and what would it look like? It would be somewhere where there is no such thing as a wrong or dumb question. All discussions of all forms are to be scrutinized by the people so that humanity can progress. In our current system, we have something very similar to an open society, where although there is information held back from us by the government, we have a vast amount of information at our fingertips and a platform to discuss that information. Within an open society, humanity's progression for the better is a top priority. The pursuit of truth is a part of this progress. We have a duty as a society to allow the truth to be found and to take in those truths to propel us through the years. We have used this philosophy in many areas of study. The sciences pride themselves on being um, meticulous in the way that they search for truths with data and facts and sensible experiments and results. The same goes for humanities, where hard facts are what drive statistics and the decisions that are made based on those statistics. With the events of the last couple of years, we have all been witness to major historical events. And because of this, we become more and more reliant on social media for information. From the election of Donald Trump in 2016, in which social media played a heavy role in, to the most recent attack on the Capitol, which once again social media fueled. The dissemination of information is an integral part of our society. We run on information, and without it, we succumb to tyranny and oppression. Social media has become our safeguard against this, as it has enabled the world to become in contact with each other constantly. We are able to get news about countries that are across the world in a matter of seconds. As a society, with the availability of information given to us by social media, the way we retain information has become fast-paced and immediate. Social media has made it easier to show the scientists, and non-academics of the world information or truth, but has also fueled the opposite side of the coin. The consistent disbelief of the truth presented and the continued conspiracy theories that have engulfed the minds of many otherwise rational people. Within America, there is an extreme importance given to freedom of speech, as it is a protected right within the United States Constitution. This has enabled the growth of social media. A downside to this is that the growing dependency on social media for information is enabled and safeguarded by the fight for freedom of speech. Within an open society, freedom of expression or speech is undetachable from the essence of the concept, in that freedom of expression is the ability of every person to express their thoughts and ideas to a willing audience with no roadblocks. There is an essential need to allow the continued conversation about every topic, no matter the subject. This creates a marketplace of ideas which should be allowed to grow and flourish as it needs so that we can grasp from it the truth. The marketplace of idea manifests itself as the areas in which the public discussion of truth and falsehood takes place. In our current society, that is the academic world as well as social media platforms. Although there is a nobility to the idea of allowing a tournament of ideas to take place where only the winner or the truth survives, it does not have a system in place to vet all of the ideas it takes in. In our current society, the marketplace of ideas serves as a void for a screaming fest of ideas. There needs to be a balance of how we approach the pursuit of truth. That's really what we're after. Especially since there is a large amount of information in our world today, there is no possible way that everything can be sifted through and debated. And the most dangerous part is that on the internet and on these large platforms, there is a higher risk of entering into rabbit holes of information that plunge a user into extremist groups. I think a majority of us have experienced entering a rabbit hole on YouTube or Twitter or any other social media platform to learn more about a topic that has piqued our interest. The issue with this is that social media profits off of plunging people into these rabbit holes. As someone goes through a Twitter feed or watches a YouTube video, the platform algorithm feeds them more and more more and more tweets or videos similar to what they were viewing. And it does so with no discrimination to whether that information is possibly dangerous or misleading. This research paper aims to understand what measures can be put in place to better regulate the marketplace of idea without trampling on the individual right. One of these ways is social media platforms taking responsibility and making commitments to fighting misinformation. Alongside this, social media platforms must take measures to decrease the amount of rabbit holes that people fall into, especially ones that have been spreading dangerous misinformation. Also, the tournament of ideas or the marketplace of ideas should be one with rules and regulations that allow it to push forward without coming to a halt because of the regressiveness of ideas and informations coming back and forth throughout the brackets. Although we cannot put everything on private companies, so the steps we take as a society are ensuring that the resources to find information are accessible to all and that there is a solid foundation of education, since educating people to be critical thinkers is the best defense against misinformation. Thank you, and just final acknowledgement to Professor Kim, who is my project supervisor, and the Rushton Undergraduate Conference for this amazing opportunity. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I hope you are enjoying hearing about the brilliant projects from all the brilliant students. My name is Angelo Koprivica, and I'm honored to contribute to this conference with everyone else. Since I came to Wayne State, I enjoyed endless opportunities learning and falling in love with so many questions of great and eminent importance. I fell in love with philosophy freshman year when I took a class with Professor Russell to learn about what I consider to be the most important question any of us will ever have to ask. That question is whether God exists, and if there are reasons to think he does or does not. Now, if you are hoping that my research is going to conclude that question once and for all, I'll unfortunately have to disappoint you. However, my research does tackle an especially important issue concerning the existence of God. That issue, in which I am researching, is whether the existence of evil and suffering in this world can decisively conclude that God does not exist. Such philosophical arguments which try to conclude that God does not exist, or that his existence is improbable due to the existence of evil, are called problem of evil arguments. There have been many versions of this argument, and it goes all the way back to ancient Greeks with the philosopher Epicurus, and all the way to our time here at Wayne State with our current professor, Bruce Russell. The argument typically goes as such. If God exists, then he is omniscient, and therefore he knows about all of the evil and suffering. And he is omnibenevolent, therefore he therefore he wants to stop all of the evil and suffering. And he is omnipotent, which means he has the power to stop all of this suffering. From that, we can conclude that if God exists, then evil and suffering should not exist. However, it seems that a lot of evil and suffering exists. From this, we can conclude that God does not exist. Does that work? What do we make of this argument? Should we all walk away from there and stop believing in God? In my research, I consider what constitutes a successful philosophical argument, and whether any version of the problem of evil can be considered a successful argument. While diving into the literature of philosophy of religion, I have found a ton of merit in how atheist philosopher Graham Oppy thinks about arguments. He views the role of argumentation as to compel rational belief revision. A successful argument, then, is one which does not have a premise that someone can rationally not accept. In analyzing many different versions of the problem of evil, including ones proposed by Draper, Sturba, and Mackey, and others, I have concluded that there are no problem of evil arguments that are successful in this way. Someone who believes in God is well within their epistemic rights to rationally not accept at least one of the premises in every philosophical problem of evil argument. Why do I think this? The short answer is, I don't know. Sorta. What I mean by this is that I believe that even if a theist does not have a reason, or he does not know a reason why the problem of evil argument fails, they could still believe that such a reason for why it fails exists, and therefore object to the problem of evil. One could be justified in believing that such an unknown reason exists because, by itself, the problem of evil does not refute the independent arguments and reasons theists have for believing that God does exist. Thus, if the theist has good reason to believe that God exists, then they have good reason to think that there is a reason the problem of evil fails, even if they don't know what that reason is. So as long as the theist has rational reasons for believing God exists, then that means they could rationally not accept a premise in any problem of evil argument. This concludes, then, that there are no successful problem of evil arguments. My research concludes with a proposal to move the dialectic of philosophy of religion away from focusing on any one individual argument and focusing on philosophy of religion as an entire project which compares the theories and worldviews of atheism and theism and weighing them by their relevant conceptual virtues, their ability to explain reality as a whole. And so this moves away from either thinking about the existence of God as forms of proofs for his existence or knockdown arguments against his existence. So with this framework, there's no decisive argument one way or the other, and this leaves a ton of room for rational agreements and rational disagreements. So one can rationally believe that God exists, and one can rationally believe that God does not exist. That seems to be the nature of philosophy, pretty much. There's arguments for God's existence, arguments against it. And wherever we fall will depend on how we think about the broad evidence and how we think about each theory and how best it explains reality. So, thank you very much for listening to me.